I'm 86 years old. I've been married for 60 of those years, and I'm sitting alone at the small kitchen table where two people used to sit, finally admitting some things I never said out loud when it mattered. My wife is in the other room. She's still alive. That's the part people don't expect. We didn't break because one of us left or died young. We broke slowly while breathing, while eating dinner together, while saying good night. Like it still meant something. I'm not telling this because I want sympathy. I'm telling it because time is almost done and silence feels heavier than regret now. Most mornings I wake up before her. I make coffee the way I always have. Same mug, same counter. The house is quiet in a way that feels permanent. We don't argue anymore. We don't talk much either. When you worn something thin enough, it doesn't tear loudly. It just gives way. I look at my hands sometimes and try to remember when they last reached for her without thinking about it. I honestly can't. We met when I was 26. She was 23. I remember her shoes more than her face that first day. They were scuffed, and she apologized for them like it mattered. I liked that she noticed small things. I liked that she listened like what you said stayed with her. Back then, everything felt ahead of us. Not planned out, just available. We didn't talk about the future much. We assumed it would show up on its own. I worked hard. That's always been the easiest sentence for me to say. I worked hard. I provided. I didn't drink too much. I didn't disappear. I came home every night. Those were the measurements I used. They felt solid at the time. She stayed busy too. The house, the kids later, the routines that filled days without asking permission. We both told ourselves we were doing what needed to be done. And that was true in a narrow way. The first thing that slowly broke us was how often we postponed each other. Not dramatically, not with excuses that sounded cruel, just little delays. After this project, once things settled down, next weekend. It always sounded reasonable. Life rewarded that kind of thinking. I can picture her standing in the doorway once, asking if I wanted to take a walk. I said, "Not tonight." I didn't even look up. She nodded and said, "Okay." That moment cost us something. I didn't know it then. I thought moments were cheap. They aren't. There were years when we barely noticed the postponing. We still laughed, still shared a bed, still knew each other's schedules. But presence is not the same as proximity. I learned that far too late. The second thing was how often I chose being right over being close. I didn't think of it that way at the time. I thought I was being practical, or honest, or calm. When disagreements came up, I focused on fixing the issue, not understanding the feeling. I explained, I corrected, I waited my turn to speak. She would go quiet sometimes. I mistook that for agreement. It wasn't. It was fatigue. There's a particular look a person gets when they realize they are not being heard, just managed. I saw that look more than once. I didn't recognize it for what it was. I thought love meant stability. She wanted connection. Those aren't enemies, but they're not the same thing either. The third thing was how we let routine replace curiosity. I stopped asking her questions that didn't have a purpose. How she felt became something I assumed instead of something I checked. I knew what groceries she liked. I didn't know what thoughts kept her awake. She changed, of course. We both did. Quietly, slowly, and instead of meeting each other again along the way, we held on to old versions like they still applied. We became efficient partners, household managers, co-parents. We stopped being witnesses to each other's inner lives. At the time, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like maturity. I remember a dinner with friends when someone asked how long we'd been married. 60 years now. Everyone smiled. Someone said, "That's rare." I smiled too. I didn't correct them. Longevity hides a lot. The fourth thing was how we handled loneliness by pretending it wasn't there. She felt alone long before I did. I know that now. She tried to tell me in small ways. I didn't hear it because she wasn't saying it loudly enough to interrupt my sense of normal. When I finally felt lonely myself, years later, I was surprised, offended almost. How could you feel alone next to someone you've shared decades with? But that's exactly how it happens. Loneliness doesn't require absence, just disconnection. We filled the space with television, with errands, with sleep schedules that didn't overlap. None of it felt dangerous. That's the problem. The fifth thing was believing there would be time to fix it later. This one is the hardest to admit, because it wasn't just a mistake, it was a belief, a deep one. I assumed awareness would arrive early enough to be useful. It didn't. The turning point wasn't a single argument or betrayal. It was her illness. Nothing dramatic at first, just fatigue, doctor visits, a calendar that suddenly revolved around medications. Sitting in waiting rooms gives you too much time to think. I started noticing how little we talked even then, how unfamiliar her silence felt, how I didn't know what to say without defaulting to logistics. One night, after a particularly long day, she said something quietly, almost as if she didn't want it to land too hard. I don't think we ever learned how to be close again after we got busy. I didn't argue. I couldn't. The truth of it sat between us like something fragile. I wanted to reach back through time. I wanted to tell her I could do better now. Now didn't want much. There are things that can't be fixed once the window closes, not because people are unforgiving, but because energy changes, capacity changes, hope wears thin. We still care about each other. I want to be clear about that. This isn't a story about hatred. It's about erosion. We did not explode. We faded. Some days I catch her looking at old photos, not smiling, just looking. I know what she's seeing. The woman who believed closeness would come back on its own. The man who thought showing up physically was enough. I wish I had known that love needs attention the way bodies need oxygen, not in bursts, constantly. If you're listening to this and you're younger, I don't want you to panic or overhaul your life. I just want you to notice where you're postponing people who matter to you, where you're assuming time is generous. I wish I had understood that effort isn't loud, it's consistent. It's choosing the person even when nothing feels wrong. There's no redemption arc here, no sudden reconnection. At 86, what's left is care, memory, and a quiet kind of grief for what never fully existed. I sit with her in the evenings now. Sometimes we hold hands. Sometimes we don't. The silence isn't hostile, it's just honest. If this meant something to you, maybe sit with someone tonight without a screen between you. You don't have to say anything important. Presence counts more than words. As for me, I've accepted that some lessons arrive only to be carried, not used. My time is short. I feel it in my bones. This is the truth I wish I had told sooner.